I am now delighted to welcome my colleagues at Citi with a very provocative conversation about vision. And we talked about value earlier with Accenture, but how do we convert value? How do we take our vision and convert it into value that informs the enterprise? Accenture talked about keeping the enterprise abreast, but how do we become leaders in the architecture of the growth of our organizations? And coming to the stage are three amazing leaders here at Citi, and I'd like to introduce Shannon Hogue to the stage, who will introduce the final panelists. John? Looking for you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, hey everyone. Welcome and thanks for joining us today, whether you're here in person or joining us remotely. My name is Shannon Hogue, as just was mentioned, and I'm part of the technology team here at Citi. I currently lead our services design and UX function. The way I would describe this to many of you is think about how big corporations do their online banking. How do they move money, how they pay the bills, how they manage their liquidity, just to kind of make it a little bit simplistic. And then how do our clients and our internal users use those platforms? So work very closely with our development engineers, our product teams to get that done. I've been with Citi for about 33 years, doing a number of different roles, both here in the States and also based in Asia for about a third of that career. I'm thrilled to be moderating this conversation with our outstanding leaders, Colin and Michael. As was mentioned, our conversation today is really around how do we take vision to value and how technology leaders are architecting enterprise growth. So let's kick things off. I'll invite Colin and Michael to the stage, and they'll tell us a little bit about themselves and the scope of their roles. All right, Colin, why don't we start with you?
Well, I lead the acronym SOUP, which internally we also call enterprise technology. So it's a technology organization. It's supporting some of our corporate functions. Those acronyms stand for things like compliance and HR, internal audit and 𝐕𝐵𝐴. I also have the pleasure of co-chairing one of our external partnerships in the Talent Council. So I have been at Citi for 44 months.
You got me beat. You got me beat by the number. All right, Michael.
So yeah, Michael Todisco. I haven't caught John yet as far as 33 years. I've been with Citi for 27 years. It's also interesting to see your face up on the big screen behind you. So what do I currently do? I've held a number of different roles at Citi over that 27 years. Everything from data center mainframe operations like pure technology to working in a lot of operations functions supporting our markets business. More recently, I'm part of the technology organization, a group called Business Architecture. We're going to get a little bit into what that means and the delivery of 𝐸, which is our framework to helping the businesses and technologies kind of come together. And specifically, currently, I sit within the resiliency organization. That resiliency organization focuses on empowering and preparing the organization for the inevitable business disruptions that can and will occur. So excited to have the conversation, and thanks, John.
All right, great. Well, what we try to do here is frame some of the conversation into some topics. So we'll go through those here maybe in the next 15-ish minutes. Then I'll open it up for questions from the audience and from online. So we've got a clock here. I'll be monitoring that. And so we'll get going here. Just want to make it a little bit conversational. I think really, Colin, let's start with you. When we think about technology, I think we all know it doesn't really exist in a vacuum. It really becomes an enabler to the business. And what's really important is how are those business investments in technology there to help move the business forward? And so when I look at what you do, like how do you make sure that your tech strategy is really aligned with those business objectives and are actually driving results?
It's not easy. I don't know if I'm going to reveal any secret sauce to it, but I can describe what we're doing. I think the first thing it starts with is realizing that the strategy is articulated in a somewhat high-level fashion. There's certain outcomes you're trying to achieve. And so it's about agreeing that with our senior partners in those various functions that I face off to. And then within that construct of these high-level outcomes that we're trying to get to, it's then working with the appropriate levels in the organization that have the detail about these things. And so we think about how we articulate the work in various levels of granularity, ultimately down to the point of a story, which is some measure of an activity that's supposed to be done within 2 weeks of time. So we really are ruthless in making sure that we have traceability all the way to the bottom for things that we're doing. And then we recognize that a strategy is a high-level thing that we're trying to do, and there's always going to be nuance and change. And so we make sure that we're not rigid in locking in unnecessarily what we're going to focus on. So we have a process that we start on a quarterly basis, and when I'm describing that level of granularity, we're now sort of in the middle of that, and we're trying to lock in at that level what is it we're going to focus on in the next quarter. And that seems to be a nice balance to be able to not have too much change, but also articulate and explain the reasons why and the focus on what we're doing. We're also very thoughtful about not trying to overestimate how much effort something's going to take. I think that sometimes becomes a bit of a trap. Sometimes you then get locked into doing that thing. So we're more focused on the actual cost of something in the act of doing it. So we're very, very transparent. In the organization that we run, we are, I kind of alluded to it a little bit, we're following an agile-like process. So at the core of the organization are teams, and we're very clear about which teams are working on which segment of the book of work. So all of that around being super transparent, aligning, but I think it also, it comes back to the difference between articulating something that you want versus what you need. And that's actually where folks like yourself, John, in design are really quite critical for us. We also have product roles in technology that are there to really, push back and challenge and with design do research and really figure out, okay, you're saying you want this thing, and I can understand it from that level, but now let's talk about the actual architecture of the system. Let's talk about how do we, in engineering, sequence the delivery of things to create an optimal efficiency and environment. And so there's this effort that we go through to really make sure that we are delivering against the high-level outcomes, but then making sure the sequencing and focus and transparency is all there, so that even at the lowest level of detail that we are really certain that we are achieving that. But having said that, it's as I said at the very beginning, it's very difficult, but that's our approach.
No, that's great, Colin. It just makes me think of a follow-up to that. I think you mentioned a lot around, one is to set and understand a strategy, right? Oftentimes when we're working with our business partners, it's really getting under what is that objective you're trying to achieve, or what is the real problem you're trying to solve? And sometimes that language doesn't come out very clearly. So asking the right questions, understanding the right outcomes, I think oftentimes you uncover it might be something slightly different, right? And then that's where we are able to do that. I heard you mention a lot about okay, we set a strategy. Obviously, we don't want to change that. It's a strategy for a reason. But we do have kind of a quarterly process, maybe these 2-week sprints that you mentioned. What are some of those rituals, just tactical rituals, maybe that you do just to stay on pulse with the business?
Yeah, well, it's within that quarterly conversation that we set that middle level strategy articulation that I described. We have monthly interactions, and as I said, depending on the level of the specificity of what we're describing, there's frequent conversations throughout. I think one of the things I would describe, which I probably left out in the intro question, was we're very focused on the idea that it's very easy to stay busy. Very easy to stay busy. Time flies. Depending on what hours you work and what you're doing, it's very, very easy to fill up the day. But the question is, are you really filling it up the best way? And so part of that is also looking at the organizational structure and making sure that we have the right ratio of roles. So we're very focused on, we have these teams and then we have these enablers and all those individuals that are around us, do we have those roles at the right ratios to maximize ultimately making sure that we're trying to work on the right things. But as a mantra of mine, and I talk to my organization, I'm constantly saying, are you really working on the most important thing? And so that is something you just have to keep asking, because it's very easy to slip into the BAU work. And even in the last several weeks, I was challenging some of my partners and saying, it feels like we're a little bit too much BAU, right? It's like we have all these regulatory obligations and all these other things, but we have a strategy. We got to continue to move this thing forward. I think we need to figure out a way to deprioritize some of this and really focus on some of these other things. So it's a constant conversation, I guess, is the short answer to this.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I think just talking about what you mentioned, working on, keeping pace, I guess, would be the best way to describe it, business as usual. But it's really, how are you kind of getting the momentum on that? We're going to talk a little bit about thinking about innovation here in a bit, so I'm going to come back to you on that. Let's go over to you, Michael, again, in the theme of aligning technology with our business objectives. And I'll focus much more on what I'll call sort of architecture. That can sound very broad, kind of abstract. People can form different assumptions about what that means. Is it a solution architect? Is it tech stack architect? All those kinds of things. But in totality, it does play a critical role in linking our tech investments to our business strategy and ultimately what they actually care about. Again, becomes an enabler. What have you seen in building architectural frameworks that keep tech aligned to these real business priorities?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I kind of wanted to hit on some of the points that Colin raised. At the end of the day, technology and people have to walk and talk together. So what does that mean? At the end, we talk about architecture, we talk about tech strategy, but all these strategies, all these ideas, it can't be just a purely technical exercise. It has to be a partnership with the people, the clients that we support at the end of the day, and have a deep-rooted understanding of what the end-to-end value chain of what we're trying to solve for, right? There's a lot of incredible technology that's out there, very disruptive technology, but if you try to implement it in isolation, it's not going to be successful, right? Because it's not coordinated within your overall technology stack. You start creating silos and not delivering on maybe some of the efficiency gains or some of the benefits that you set out when you were building that tech strategy. So the tech and the people have to always work together. So sitting down with your business partners, with your clients, and really understanding the value chain, not just an individual problem that they're trying to solve with. I can't count over 27 years how many times I've said, I wish this system did X, Y, Z, right? I see some of our partners in the room, where I probably said that to them a million times, right? But if you take that step back, are we articulating kind of the key capabilities that we need, the functions that we require to be supported, and then how does the technology and how does the architecture then enable those business processes to succeed and start delivering value? I know we're going to get into it in a little bit, but one of the things we do in business architecture is define enterprise standards and taxonomies, what I would call a common language. And what that common language really drives is a way for everyone across the organization, whether you sit within markets or a services business, whether you sit in one of the many acronyms that Colin has up on the screen over there, right, our functional partners, right? Everyone is calling our processes the same thing, and it starts allowing us to relate to each other and really start finding different commonalities in different silos and pockets within the organization. And that's where you start unlocking real value, because you really start determining, okay, wow, I didn't realize this part of the business was doing process X, Y, Z, and they were doing it in system ABC, right? And then you start seeing you have redundancies in the application stack that you're using. That drives cost, that drives complexity, right? That drives countless integration challenges, whether it's internal or external, right? You start really creating this complex web that it's very difficult to untangle if you go too far down the road. So I think at the start, when you're really defining your technology strategy and you're looking at the architecture that you're trying to build, it's really getting a really robust understanding of your entire technology real estate. A lot harder than I'm making it sound right now, but it starts with foundational taxonomies, how we call our processes, models that not just talk about your current state and how things work today, but kind of what is your North Star and where are you moving toward? And you do that by understanding what is driving some of the business and client priorities, right? What are the revenue drivers? Where does the business not want to go today, but where do they want to be in 5 or 10 years? And that's how you kind of align kind of those business asks with your tech strategy and make sure it all comes together and you're doing it in a way that enables not just growth in one particular business, but growth across all of our business units, right? Because at the end of the day, when a client comes to Citi, they're not really just coming for one particular thing. They want the whole suite of what Citi has to offer. And by looking at our real estate comprehensively, we can find those synergies so we can provide one singular client experience, one client entry point to deal with a lot of the complexity that a large institution like Citi has.
Great, thank you, Michael. So a couple things, and I'm going to pivot just based on what you just said. First one is, what I'm hearing from both of you, it's really about having that constant active engagement with your business partners and really making sure that we're, one, understanding what they want to do, we're solving the right things, we're moving the same direction, and having that as, just a way of life is really important to both of you. This is a part where the moderator becomes a panelist for a minute, because you did mention really around taxonomies and standardization and all those things. And really it comes in, when you think about a company like Citi, we're very large, we're very global, we operate in 90 plus, 100 plus jurisdictions. Don't quote me on that, I need to look at the notes. But in global organizations, for those of you who work in them, you're always balancing the need for standardization and efficiency, but also making sure that we're tailoring things to local markets. In the world of finance, we're a regulated industry. That means that we have to answer to regulators all over the world, whether that be the OCC here, it could be Monetary Authority of Singapore, the 𝐻𝐾𝐽A, all these different, they have different requirements, right? And so when we really think about how do we approach that tension of driving standardization and efficiency, how do we also localize, right? I'm going to answer this question just due to having worked abroad for a while. And I think it's just like Colin mentioned earlier, everything is a real balance, and it's not always easy. And what we've always tried to do, both when I worked in our consumer business, at the time we had 17 plus markets throughout APAC and EMEA, but we were trying to deliver a common mobile experience, right? But we knew that there were different payment networks, there were different marketing needs. And I think a lot of that was really trying to get alignment on what's definitely common that our business needs, and then how do we make those types of things more modular and adaptable and give our businesses a bit more control. And so that was something that we really looked at, making sure we got like an 80-20 there. And it took a lot to get our businesses to align, because it's very important. My clients are different, my customers are different, they need this, my offers are different. And so really it was getting down and really understanding that and then showing them what was possible. And I'm seeing a lot of those same things occur within my role within our services business, where we have very similar challenges around different regulatory needs, different client needs. And I think that approach of really trying to make as much common as possible and then allow for some localization. If I were to give you all an analogy to this, If you think about a McDonald's, right? You can go to any McDonald's. Likely the registers are the same. Likely the menus are the same. A lot of the machinery in the kitchen is generally the same. But if you go to different countries, there's a little bit different things. Like if you go to Malaysia, they have nasi lemak on the menu. If you go to Singapore, you get curry sauce, right? If you go to my home state of New Mexico, you can get green chili on your burger. And I think is a great analogy when you think about that. You still get a Big Mac and a quarter pounder and chicken nuggets. The registers are likely the same. But those are how we really think about, how do you make that balance between standardization and, localization. So let's move on to our next theme, and this is really around driving innovation and value creation. And on this one, I'm going to kind of open up to both of you because I think you can bring some different perspectives here. But when you think about you and your teams, how do you build a culture where innovation isn't just a slogan, but something that your teams actually live and breathe? And when we think about innovation, sometimes it can be a collection of things that build up to make a bigger change, or things that oftentimes can be a breakthrough idea. So how do you find those balances? So Colin, why don't I start with you just on that whole theme around culture and kind of driving those different methods of innovation?
Yeah. I guess first I'll ask a question to the audience. How many of you have tried vibe coding? Yeah. I haven't written a line of production code in now a few years, and over the last few months, my weekends have been filled with coding. It's just fascinating what AI is able to do even now, and I share this because this is the conversation I have with my organization as well, and I'm constantly asking them what are they doing at their in work, their personal lives, to take advantage of this technology that is becoming more and more part of the mainstream, but allows you to do things that like you couldn't do before. For me, it's like writing really good code. Like I can't do that much anymore, but now using these technologies, I'm able to do something quite like that. So yeah, it starts with creating an environment where you really encourage and keep encouraging people to take advantage of the opportunities there. I think it's also, I have a few other mantras. I've talked about one so far, but another one I keep saying is failure is the only option. And I want people to feel comfortable as we're executing against the strategy that we're going to make mistakes. And in allowing people and supporting people to make mistakes, that's where you can also have these unexpected surprises on the upside. And so it's that environment where you're constantly asking, what are you doing? Like back to like, are you really working on something important? Are you really stretching yourself? Are you spending the time, whether it's work or in personal life, to do that? So I think that's the first part. I also would say that the two other life hacks for you. The first is that I think that I always tell people that the easiest way to be successful in life is to work with successful people. So that's step number one. But the step number two is wherever you're working in, you have to be intellectually curious about. It has to be a domain that is just something that you just want to keep exploring. And if you're in that sort of setting and in a role that is just interesting to you, innovation is going to happen. So you need the right support around you, but it comes also from within.
Michael.
Yeah, I think Colin hit on a lot of the key points. I think it starts with just creating an environment where your teams feel safe with exploring, different opportunities to challenge the status quo and introduce ideas. We do, it's like every 2 weeks, we do like a think tank Thursday. Not my title, but I think someone ChatGPT that maybe, I don't know. But it's an opportunity for us to not look at email, stay off of Zoom, get together in person, just grab a good old whiteboard and just draw up ideas. Like, what challenges are they seeing? To Colin's point, what technologies are they engaging with that potentially could bring value to Citi? Is Citi exploring any of these opportunities, right? So it's just a way for people to feel comfortable bringing ideas to the table. You know, we work in environments that are so performance-based, right? You need to deliver on time or early, right? It has to be successful. It can never break. And folks feel pressure to not fail, right? So it's a way to just create an environment where people feel comfortable with bringing ideas, bring discussion, feel comfortable just openly providing challenge to a particular idea so that you could get different perspectives and ideas. And it's really fostered a lot of great thoughts amongst the team and letting them just kind of run with a particular initiative. It's like, all right, great, we're doing X, Y, Z right now. Mary, you seem to be really interested in doing this type of work. Why don't you run with it? And it gives people that opportunity. So it starts with just creating the environment so people feel that they can deliver change, right? Two is making sure that you get a lot of great idea makers. But I think where things maybe fall short is, okay, you have a great idea. It sounds really promising. Now, how do you pitch it, right? And we're not talking about the Shark Tank pitch, but rather, how do you bring that idea to life? And it really starts with delivering kind of the business case. And I think that's where a lot of things fall short. A lot of great ideas, the whiteboard looks fantastic. This absolutely is going to work. But then it's like, all right, so what? Or you bring it to the business, or you bring it to your technology leads. Like, we don't have money for this. What's the value? What am I going to get out of this, right? So it's as a senior leader, it's not for me to answer all those questions, even though I'm looked to answer the questions, but rather provide the tools for my team to build that business case. And we'll get into how we align kind of those business priorities to tech investments and things like that. But it's to help build that business case and providing them the tools to showcase that idea about what the real value is. I worked in a markets innovation team several years ago, now 2018, and it was focused on blockchain, DLT, right at the 2017-ish, Bitcoin craze that everyone was talking about. Trying to pitch that idea around a proof of concept to the businesses without a legitimate business case was extremely difficult, right? It felt like I was selling kind of snake oil to people at this point. So it was, I had to go back and really refine how I delivered the message, how I built the business case, how I ensured that individuals wanted to go on this journey with me. And that's kind of the message that I kind of try to build within the team so that they feel comfortable doing it. So I think it's providing the environment, providing them the ability to show the value that idea can bring to the organization. And then it's about providing them the tools, right? I'm sure Colin has lots of tools that they use in his part of the technology organization. Citi's done an incredible job, obviously, in the public domain of enabling all of our technology users or the organization to engage with AI. I think that was probably some of the discussion that was prior. But it's giving just every staff member, not just, hardcore technologists, but everyone the ability to explore these tools, which is now really tapping into a different part of the team, getting out of that BAU that Colin talked about, and really letting people channel that creative energy and using tools in a very controlled, responsible ways. And it's really starting to unlock a lot of great ideas and real value. And I just want to add, I think when people try to come up with an idea, they're trying to come up with like the biggest idea ever, like this huge game-changing idea. Sometimes the best ideas are the smallest little seeds that just kind of grow into something big. So don't boil the ocean. Don't try to solve every problem at the organization, because guess what? You're not. That's why we all have jobs. But you can start, it's doing all those little things the right way and trying to tap into some of those things, aligning to that North Star that I talked about earlier. And you really, that starts building that cultural change within the organization to really want to change, sponsor change, and really start to then implement and adopt that change.
Great, thank you. So just summarizing what we've been hearing here, it's really around creating an environment. Like you mentioned, it's the mission might be to allow failure, right? Innovation isn't just a buzzword. It could be a series of incremental things that adapts over time, taking in a lot of ideas. I mean, this is not new to anybody, but you really have to allow those things to foster. And I think, Michael, you brought up a good point about solving a big problem. Sometimes when you're working on innovation or technology, you have the technology, you know it can do a lot. But sometimes it takes a while for our business partners to have the use case to really drive it, right? And a lot of times that's that socialization and talking it through. It might be a great idea, but they might think about it a different way. And so, kind of, give that some thought. And finally, when you think about innovation, I'll leave this with you, and then we're going to open up some questions to the audience. In our earlier part of our conversation, we talked about strategy. Think about strategy really being that North Star. That's what we're driving towards. Like innovation and the way you enable that gives you a little bit of that warp drive to get there, maybe a little bit faster, maybe a little bit efficient, right? There are also opportunities to be a lot more pioneering, which is really around discovering the unknown and the areas that you haven't discovered yet. And so that's all of those tools that we do as technology and sort of that thought leadership. How do we bring that to bear for our organizations that we all support? So with that, we've got about 5 minutes left, give or take. I do want to open it up to the audience. We've got microphones here in the room. I think we also have questions coming in online, and I'm going to get some help with those questions, I believe. But why don't we open it up?
Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning. Cesar Mateos from Delta Airlines. You talked about the need to connect the dots, getting a need from a business partner and translating that into something that is meaningful for the technology stack and for the ecosystem. Talk a little bit about how you build that trust with those partners, because sometimes the investment to make it work for the ecosystem maybe doesn't size up to the particular pain point that they're bringing up to you. So how do you build that trust and educate your business counterparts?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, to start, I think one is just showing a genuine interest in the business that they're operating in. If you, as Colin mentioned, Citi is a global organization. Our businesses operate in so many different countries and jurisdictions, right? The client profile is different in a lot of those places. So really understanding what are the key business drivers for that business as a starting point. And I think what I've always found effective when engaging with our business partners on helping share the why, less about the technology, right? Because there's so many different technology tools that potentially could solve that problem, but the why behind it is, and we didn't get to it too much, but Citi has we call 𝐕𝐚𝐥𝐮, which is Citi's enterprise architecture methodology. So it's a framework. And that framework is meant to provide what we call process intelligence to our stakeholders to better understand the real estate they're operating in. So, a lot of our business partners are very focused on their businesses, right? They look left and right, but they're really focused on delivering results for their business. Our methodology allows to pull in all this different metadata from various different sources. It could be everything from operational losses to other kind of strategic projects that we're working on, right? So it provides kind of a full landscape. It's not a way to tell the businesses what to do, but kind of give them a compass of where their business is operating right now and how strong they are in a particular process or not. I think if you marry the mixture of understanding what the business does, in addition with providing them data around how their business is actually operating from a process lens, that becomes a very powerful tool to open the eyes of some of those business partners that there are opportunities to either simplify or even expand in a particular area that maybe needs to be strengthened, right? So providing that data and understanding the business model, I think, are two powerful tools to allow the businesses to react to something, right? It's always, we have conversations, it's great, just talk, like, hey, I think this is a problem, this might solve it, but actually seeing the data behind it and where there's opportunities to simplify the technology stack. Oh, did you realize, a great example is we had two platforms. I won't go into too much detail. We had two platforms supporting two different parts of our business doing exactly the same thing, right? Huge technology costs. associated with boats, huge upkeep. And you had the left side of the organization and the right side of the organization fighting for the same technology dollars. Well, when you started putting this in front of the business partners, the first question is, say, well, why do we have two platforms? Because they didn't know what they didn't see the other side of what the other side of the organization was doing, even to support a slightly different client base, but the actions, the functions underlying those processes were exactly the same. So I think marrying those two are extremely helpful tools to engage in that conversation to help bring some of those decisions to light.
I'll just quickly add, because I know we have another question. I think it starts with transparency. Like I was describing before, the ability to really be completely open and transparent about all the things you're doing and the why that you're doing things. You know, the technology can be scary and opaque, and a lot of unknowns. And when I was describing the effort to try to translate the wants to needs, it's trying to demystify some of these things. But it starts with absolute, complete transparency about what's happening. And the other thing, it's about supporting conflict. So just like I support failure, I'm really trying to create an environment where people feel very comfortable challenging each other. And through that challenging, we can actually iterate on ideas and actually get to something that's maybe a bit more appropriate. So it starts with full transparency, and then it starts with that culture of being able to credibly challenge each other.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think we have time for another question. Do you have one over here?
Thank you. Alejandra Monroe, SoftTech. As you build your strategy and design innovation, I wanted to know more how you partner with your CISO and your security teams. I recently completed an MIT program around digital transformation, and there wasn't a single day we didn't talk about security, privacy concerns, and I think while you're building this strategy, we would love to know how you incorporate security to mitigate risk.
Yeah,
That's all you.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Just like I was describing interactions with some of our partners in compliance or HR, and we talked with them about that work they want to do. The reality of delivering technology is that there are many, many stakeholders. Security is absolutely one of the stakeholders in that conversation, and you have to treat all of them with the partnership that you would with your functional partners. And so we have just like I was describing, a process in which we're sort of quarterly evaluating and making sure all of that is also the intake from security and various other concerns that we have. And so it's evaluating everything that is being asked for and through an intake process, and really being thoughtful and prioritizing how those various concerns get addressed. So it's not a great answer for you, but it's that you have to realize that this is a very important part of technology delivery, and because it's, you know, putting something out there. One of the other things I also say is you need to care about this stuff. And why you should care about it is because you want to create an environment where you are continually delivering. And if you have unexpected events, like a security event or some sort of production outage or some other sort of thing, that's distracting you from the ability to have that sustainable delivery. So all of those things, whether it's infrastructure, security, I try to really drive into the organization that those things are very important to pay attention to.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm getting a signal we have time for a little bit more. Are there any other questions? Is there any questions online? Maybe ask that. Okay, in the room, let's go over again to this side.
Hello, my name is Marcelo Quiles. I'm from Morgan Stanley. I'm from Brazil. I kind of resonate with what you said, Colin, about vibe coding. I think in the later days, when you had an idea and you wanted to get that working, it was so hard. You had an idea and it took like weeks to do it. And a couple of months ago, I had an idea. I put in ChatGPT in like 15 minutes. I had this APK running on Android. It was incredible. But I want to hear your thoughts about how that would work in the enterprise, actually in financial services. What are your thoughts about it? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll tell you, when I first started doing it, I was prompting it and looking at the code that I was writing and kind of, oh, does that make sense? And then after a while, you just kind of hit, approve, or I can't remember what the button is now. Accept is the button. I use cursor as the interface, but yeah, that's not going to work in enterprise. Because the other thing about the AI is you ask it to do one thing, and it's like, oh, I'm going to be creative and do 2 other things that you want, that you might want. So we are going to have to put the guardrails in. At Citi, we're going down a path of enabling Devin as one of the agentic environments that we can work on. And I view that as really an opportunity to do some of the large kind of refactoring modernization things that we never could get to in normal course of prioritization. So whether it's moving off a legacy language or a framework or middleware that no longer is as popular and supported, that's where those environments where it's multi-agents kind of working on your behalf are going to be extremely good at, because then you could take that code base, which is probably 90% there, and bring it into a more controlled environment where the humans are going to be more involved and not just hitting accept as they go through that. So yeah, I don't think we've figured it out yet entirely. I think also, obviously with source code, ultimately it's text, it's visible, and you can read it. And you do have an existing practice doing code reviews and peer reviews, and so I think we're gonna work through this, but it's one of the reasons why we're not widely rolling it out yet, because we have to figure out the right controls around it. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to this side of the room.
Yeah, thank you so much. Javier Hernandez, Microsoft. Traditionally, the route of for a CIO to become the CEO has always been very challenging. Do you see that changing? Do you see more leadership coming out of IT department?
Yeah, well, I think we all have to be technically literate. I think that's the clear future of these things. So I do think some senior roles, whether they're maybe at Citi or at other firms, I do think that more of the senior positions will start to be filled by people that maybe have a stronger technical background, because technology is just such an enabler for all these different businesses. So I don't know. I don't know the exact path. I do know before I joined here, I was at JP.Morgan, and they were particularly good at having people in technology move into kind of business roles. So I think that's part of the strategy, but I don't know.
Yeah, I would add, I'm not a technologist by trade. I will openly admit that. I was telling Colin all the technology questions you got to field before we came on stage. But I am extremely tech literate, right? I keep abreast of emerging technology trends and changes. I need to be comfortable with how the technology that's being introduced into the market can enable and unlock value for any of the processes that we do. So, hopefully I'm not misquoting him, since he's the head of our organization from a technology standpoint. But Tim always says, like, we are a technology company also, right? As much as we say we're a financial services company, we are a tech company, right? We are providing solutions to our clients, to our colleagues to the left and right. And the only way to do that is to really be comfortable with technology to unlock that. And I think you will see more and more technology leaders, as Colin mentioned, kind of step into kind of business-facing roles or be more engaged. In fact, when I was in our markets business, they carved out their own kind of technology team. So it didn't roll up into technology, but they wanted technologists sitting with them, which kind of really then sparked a lot of the algo trading and electronic trading, right? They wanted technology-first individuals who then could be that face-off to our true technology, capital T partners within the organization. So I definitely think you're going to see an increased shift to making sure that you have extremely tech-savvy individuals in very senior leadership roles.
All right, thank you both, and thank you, audience. I think on this one in particular, I think it's back and forth, right? I think the closer I work with our CIOs, I think sometimes they're more CFOs, like controlling expenses and costs and sheets like that.
Yeah.
So, but it's
That's
also
not the fun part, though.
Yeah, I know. But it's also as much as all of us as technology leaders really understanding our business. When we really understand our business and the business drivers, what makes revenue, how do we control our costs, what our clients' needs are, that makes us better at what we do. So wanted to thank both of you, Colin, Michael, for joining us up here on stage. We're going to wrap up this panel, and I really appreciate all of your time listening to us, and hope you guys have a great rest of your afternoon.